Hey, welcome back to the Guillemot Kayaks Workshop. I'm Nick Schade, and Bill and I are working on the Petrel Play SG, a stitch and glue sea kayak. The Petrel Play is available as a kit from Chesapeake Lightcraft, and we're building that Chesapeake Lightcraft kit. In the last episode, we started putting together the deck, and in this episode, we'll continue working on the deck. Primarily what we'll be working on is getting the details of the deck in. That includes the cockpit and the hatches. So the cockpit and hatches are all recessed from the deck. This makes it so the water has a clearer path to go across the deck, not as much stuff sticking up. With the cockpit, it makes it so the back of the coaming is a little bit lower, makes it easier to roll, and it looks cool. So we're going to go through the process of assembling those recesses. We will not finish stitching up the deck this episode. We'll finish it up the next episode. So actually, this is the second episode on, I believe it's day 4 of the build. So even though we're like 9 episodes into the process now, we're only like 4 days into the process. So it may look like this is taking a long time, but I'm just trying to be as complete as possible with these videos to show you as much detail of the process as possible. So again, we're going to work on stitching up the deck, and primarily that will be assembling the cockpit recess and the fore and aft hatch recesses. So let's get to it. Okay, so we've got the side panels assembled now. Now we're ready to kind of assemble the deck proper. I want to grab the book right there. Again, looking at the manual here, we've gathered all the deck pieces, which are the side panels, the forward deck panels, or the middle panel, the aft deck. Then there's also these recesses that we'll be working on. But first we'll just address the body of the deck itself. On the hull, we had the bottom panel that we stitched together along the center line. Right. Most of this we don't have a center line stitch, but we do on the very forward pit of the bow. So we've got these pieces which constitute that forward part of the bow, and these we will end up opening up just like we did the bottom of the boat. So we're going to end up stitching along this long edge here. So just to review how these go together, just like we did the keel line, we're going to run wires through those stitch holes on both sides. And I've bent the wire, and once you bend the wire, it doesn't go through easily. Just make sure. Since we put the protective epoxy coat on here, some of these holes are plugged up, and so I'm just going to go ahead and open those up while I have a tool in my hand. This shorter edge gets wired together, and remember, we are going to take these pieces, so hold them 90 degrees to each other, and then give them a twist with a little bit of gap left in there. We don't need to make it super tight, but we want a good twist so it doesn't come undone. And we'll go ahead and do that whole edge.
Oh, did I drop? You know what I did?
Oh, you threw the scraps back in the... Well, that'll learn you.
I thought it was the scrap bucket.
So we have this bow panel all the way out at the front. This is going to end up opening out just like this. And so that'll end up out here. We now want to grab form 2. No, this is form 3. So it's got 3 little notches in it. And on this mid-deck panel, there's a spot with double stitch holes. So right here, here, and here. Here, here, and here. So you see the double stitch holes. This piece fits down onto this form and gets pulled down tight against this surface. So like we did on the bottom, we're going to run some wires, so make little U-shaped wires, run them down through the double stitch holes from the inside towards the outside. So all 3 of those pairs of holes. So now we've got wires sticking up out of the back. So we've got these wires sticking out here, coming through those double stitch holes. And we're going to take this and put the form in between those double stitch holes and wire them up into the corners here. So this panel is not actually flat. All the other panels on the boat are flat. It's possible the back deck has a little bit of non-flatness too, but the front deck has got a little bit of an arch to it. This needs to be pulled up into here. We need to be careful that we don't break this piece because this helps us to find the curve we want.
So that curve is allowing for a little more foot room.
Yeah, and it sheds water a little bit better, looks better. So I'm going to twist the corners down, the sides down here, start those in place. Again, pull things tight, then twist. So this one will get wire through there. Pull it tight and get it just have something to push on. And then again, pull that wire tight and lock it in. So you see it conforms to that shape right there. So we've got a little bit of bend to it. So that's going to go out here towards the front of the boat. And then likewise we have on the back panel here, form 4, there's another set of double stitch holes right here. Had a little bit of epoxy drip there. Let's address that. So we had some epoxy drip through or drip over the side here, and it glued to our cardboard a little bit. We want to get rid of that. It happens to cover our double stitch hole here. Here's one of the double stitch holes, and there's another one right under that little piece of cardboard. So we're going to try and take that off. You could just try scraping it off with a scraper. What'll probably be a little bit more effective is if we use a heat gun, heat that up, and then scrape it off. Really good and hot. So I cleaned up nice. Clean up those holes, make sure these are all clean. Now we will take this piece and fit it in underneath. So again, some just U-shaped wires down through those double stitch holes. Open these up so we're got the form in between those, and then wire them into the corners. Use the pliers to pull that wire through.
Okay.
So you want to get all the slack out of that.
Yeah, get it right down in.
Yeah. Needs to go that way a bit.
There we go. Crossing at a 90. Get started a little.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be super tight on the corners because the pressure of the middle is going to draw it down. All right, so now we've got the middle one still in there. And again, just having a little bit of something to push down with. You want to just push down here.
Yep.
Pull this tight, get all the slack out of it. Get that nice 90-degree angle and give it a couple twists to lock it in place. See, what's that look like? Let go of that.
Nice and tight.
All right, so that's staying, so perfect. So that's form 2 and form 3. And now this piece will go back here someplace. So the cockpit opening here ends up being on the lower edge. So over here on that side. And this will fit right down into here someplace. And we'll take this one and again on the lower edge there. And so now we want to get this form lined up with these double stitch holes right here.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see.
Like that. So right here, there's some double stitch holes. And then up here, there's some double stitch holes right there. And so this will come to about that point. And like we did on the hull, we're going to take and put stitches through those double stitch holes out to the form. So from the inside out on all 4 points here. That will start to get the alignment of where everything's supposed to be. And remember, we want to pull these down tight towards the forms. Again, pull all the slack out of the wire, get it tight in there, and then give it a twist to lock it in place. All right, and likewise back in these spots back here. All right, so those are the 2 primary forms. Now we've got form 2 notches, and form 1. So these go up at the bow of the boat. Let's see, double stitch holes. So that'll go there. And this one, we'll actually hold off on putting this one in until a little bit later. So same drill, wires through the edge of the panel into the top of the form. Okay, so this piece will end up going in here, in between these 2 other pieces. And let's see, we see the double stitch holes here. All right, yeah, it doesn't seem to have a double stitch hole there, but it goes this the second one back from the bow of the boat. And go right in there, and so we can drill a double stitch hole there. All right, let's just drop this out for a second so we don't have to deal with it. And we'll just loosely wire these 2 pieces into the top of that form, just like we did the other ones.
Okay. Loosely, you say, though.
Yeah, we're not going to cinch it up until we get the bottom panel in there. Yeah. So now we have something to support this. We'll just loosely, in a couple spots, wire this in place. So right here at this end, just boop, 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 boop.
Okay.
Just so we sort of start to define all the panels and where they're located.
But we're not going to pull this tight.
Yeah, not super tight yet.
Okay.
Just get it started. By staining and putting the epoxy on the outside, we have buggered up a few of these holes. They're easy enough to clean out. We're not cinching things up just yet. We're just trying to get the parts in the places they need to be. And the last one to do is the stern, and let's just grab a wire. I'll grab a wire, and we'll take and loosely wire in a couple of these just so it starts to take its shape. So we've got a couple more bits that are going to go in here. This is where the cockpit is, and then around the back of that we have what creates the recess for the cockpit, goes back in here. So this still has these parts that we'll be using later. We can take this piece out, and so it's got the tabs holding it together. Just break those tabs off and set that aside for future reference. This is going to end up going in here, but this is going to go wrapped around the back. We've got a little tab here, this square edge on here. So just cut that tab right off, and then at either end there's a couple more of those tabs. So bevel side, in this case, it's going to be on the inside of the boat, so bevel side up. With this side, again, there's a bevel on this outer edge. That'll be bevel side up. This piece needs to bend around the side of this, something like that. And so that will make the recess. So we'll do that by starting at the very back, and this might be easier to do the stitches coming up from the underside so we can see everything. Take these wires, pull them tight, get a twist in them. And so now we want to come down around the sides, twisting wiring them up as we go.
Want me to do some?
Sure.
Yeah.
And again, I think it's easier to have the wires coming in from below,
Okay.
which we could just, let's do this. Let's be efficient about it and just shove some wires through here. First couple pairs of holes on either side. So don't just get them through there. So I have a couple tabs on the edge of this. We just want to cut those off. I'm not worried about the tabs inside the hole, just around the outer edge. And just trim those back. There's a tab over here. No, it seems to be gone. All right, so now we'll flip this back over. And we want this piece to fold down. So we'll take and hold it down, get our wires situated here, getting ready to give them a twist, give it a nice tug, and tighten them up. We're trying to get these pieces even along that edge, so it pays to sort of grab it farther out than where your wires are. Get it cinched down onto there.
Kind of use your hand as a clamp.
Yep. Pull the wire tight, give it a twist. Oops, I was going to go from the other side. So let's flip it over briefly, and while I have my hand here. Okay, so we've got most of the wires placed. Things still aren't aligned right, so if you see this point down here, it should nestle right into that end there, and likewise over here, that should nestle into that. So we might need to shift the whole thing slightly to one side. That may have overdone it. No, that looks good. So we've sort of got an even gap on both sides here.
Mine's about a 16th or so.
Yeah, this is about a 16th there.
Okay.
So now we can work on cinching these up a little bit more. So get them crossed, pull on them. If you've got too much pulled out, you can pay to move that crossing point. Pull and twist, pull and twist. This is sort of an assembly for the cockpit area with that recess at the back. This will end up in the boat and we'll eventually stitch all the way around here. But I want to sort of lock this assembly in place, having it look the way we want it to look. If you look on the inside here, we want a nice tight seam where these panels meet tight corner to corner, just like that. This will be a process of spot welding on the back side and the underside and working our way around, getting those all nice and tight all the way around, so it's a really tight seam there and it'll look nice. So I'm going to get it tight and feel underneath there that it's nice and smooth, and try not to glue your fingers in. And a couple dots along here just to get that solidified, and then we'll a little spritz. Hold that for a second. So on this side, that's nice tight seam right there. Now we'll work our way around that. And I'm just putting a little drop into that seam. Let it soak in a little bit, spritz it. Start lining it up down here.
So you're just using your fingers on the back to feel?
Yeah, feel that there's no step there.
Yep.
And here, this last piece should basically fit flat in there. So it's untwisted relative to the bottom panel there. So this is fitting in like that, tight. I'm going to get some spots of glue in here and give it a spritz. And go ahead, hold that in place. So on this side, we've come all the way around from here all the way down there, and it's all nice and tight. And now Bill gets to do the other side. Try getting it out of alignment so you see what that feels like.
Oh, okay, yeah. Because it's in perfect alignment right now.
Right.
I can feel it here, yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Your fingers work has a nice, really
Yeah.
nice gauge of this.
Stick the tip in there and give it just a little squeeze. Don't try and drop it in. You don't need to spread it out, just one little squeeze and move on. And make sure you hold that long enough for it to set up.
Yeah, you can really feel when it comes into alignment. Just notice that I went to glue it and I heard the wood make a crick. And you knew it jumped out of place.
Yeah.
You heard a little sound. I just went to move on right after I sprayed it, and realized from my previous mistake that you have to give it a second. This is the tricky part. You gotta kind of line it along.
Yeah, do it dry once just to see what that's all going to feel like. And where are you going? Okay, you can shave that off.
Shaving finger.
Be aware of where you're going to put your glue and relative to your fingers.
Right.
So maybe decide where you're going to want your fingers and decide where you'll put your glue relative to that, so you don't glue your fingers to the boat.
Right.
Because Bill glued to the boat makes for a very slow boat.
I have lost weight.
Dragging along.
So here, do you want to spread the glue a little more?
You don't need to.
Don't need to.
Don't need to.
Okay.
Just a dot there.
And then you spritzed it?
I spritzed and ran, yep.
Yeah.
So one thing that Chesapeake Lightcraft does with this part is this part was right behind this part on the plywood. So the grain here matches. It doesn't line up perfectly, but it's the same piece of wood. And so it's
book matching.
Well, it's continuous match there, and and that's one of the details. They make a point of laying out the plywood parts in such a way that things go together harmoniously.
Nice.
So this piece ends up down here in there, but we have some other holes to fill. We've got this hole, which is the aft hatch, and that hole over there, which is the front hatch. And over here, we've got the pieces that are going to go in there. So these pieces are a lot like the recess we just installed around the cockpit. But this recess goes all the way around each of those holes. So we're just going to cut these tabs out. So we have these pieces, and this stuff is 3mm plywood as opposed to the 4mm that everything else is made out of. It makes it a little bit more flexible because these have to take a substantial bend. So these pieces, they're all puzzle jointed, just like the other parts. They have one way that they go together. Be aware of the bevel side. These all have a bevel on them, and we're going to end up keeping the bevels all on the same side. And these have a little bit of fuzz on them. All right, so we can take and just do a light cleanup of these. Again, we're not trying to adjust the shape, we're just trying to get rid of the fuzzies. There's a little bit of fuzzies around the edge. I'm not worried about those. I'm just worried about getting these puzzle joints fitted together. So this doesn't fit, this does fit, but the bevel's on the wrong side. So try the other side here. So I've designed these cut into 4 pieces, and the grain orientation is fairly important. The grain's going this way on this piece, this way on this piece, this way on this piece, and this is matching that, and it'll be over here with the grain going across it. I do that so it's more flexible, because this whole thing, I've got to get this puzzle joint right here and this puzzle joint right here to speak to each other. So
that's a stretch.
Yeah, it's got to come all the way around. So first thing I'm going to do is just assemble these here. Again, just like we were doing before, make sure these are nice and tight. And then we're going to be a little bit more liberal with the glue here, because these will be under a little bit of stress. Make sure everything's still lined up. Give it a little spritz onto the next one. So I'm just putting a bead of glue. I'm not squeezing particularly hard, just to have some glue covering the whole seam.
And so once again, you want to have that glue on the inside.
Yeah, so on the bevel side. Make sure it feels all nice and smooth. So this glue will wick down into that joint. Theoretically, this will come all the way around and meet. This is one of the pieces most likely to break. You can see it's got to do a lot in order to get where it needs to go. In order to help that and make it less likely to break, I'm going to use some strapping tape. I use this tape later on in the process for putting the deck and hull together. So I'm going to run tape down across those seams. Several pieces across here, actually. So
hitting that seam again with that.
Yeah, I'm covering the puzzle joints, and I'm crossing all the way across the piece of wood. And we'll put another piece top here just to make sure it's covered. Make sure the tape's rubbed in and well stuck down. So this piece is going to wrap around this hatch ring, all the way around here like this, just the same way the recess behind the cockpit wrapped around. And we do have these nubbins here. We can shave those off on the inside of this diameter. All right, so these nubbins right here.
And could you sand those off if you were shy about using that knife in that manner?
You could, and I might just go ahead and hit it with a little sanding block here. So we're going to try and wrap this all the way around here. This 3mm plywood's pretty flexible. It can do the bend without any assistance, but it can sometimes be good to help it out a little bit. And so heat gun here. we can start to pre-bend it. So it's staying a little bit pre-bent here. So this can help you if you're worried about breaking it, which is a possibility. That ends up with a good pre-bend. And you can get all the parts, coax a little bit of extra bend into them before you get started. All right, so you can get it bent and put it together on a flat surface, but it can also help, since we want to get the glue on the inside of the boat, not on the outside. I think something like a gallon of paint, so we get this, ease it together. Oh, got a little crackage there. Gonna get some glue on there. Hold that tight together. All right, so we have a ring there. I did get some crackage in this joint right here, putting that together. It's always a little bit tricky, but that will get faired out when we match it with this ring. We'll do that in a moment, but let's look at the back hatch, the big oval, and cut the spare bit out of there. This has a little nubbin here. That's going to be the front of the hatch. Basically, that's just going to be the center line. We'll line up the wire holes there. This is the part I've pre-bent. You see that's already coming around to this a lot closer. We've got the nubbins on the outside of this. This has a nubbin on it. This has a nubbin on it. So this notch right here is where that nubbin is going to go. So we want to keep the nubbin on there, but on the recess bit we do want it. So it'll be the same drill, getting them fit together, giving everything a little bit of a sanding. You want to give this a try, Bill?
Okay.
I've given you the easier one.
Well, that's nice of you.
Yeah, let's just get those puzzle joints cleaned up so to test fit all of them.
Okay.
And then we will go ahead with the beginnings of assembly.
So you just want to get all the fuzz off?
Yeah, out of the puzzle joint area. And there are some nubbins on the inside surface of these that can be knocked down.
All right.
That should be it. It's just a matter of making it fit.
Okay.
And we will want to test all the puzzle joints before gluing it together.
Right. Start up.
Make sure it will go in there.
Getting closer. There it is.
There you go. Beautiful.
All right, so that one works.
Mind your bevel.
Mind your bevel, William. Is this typical that you have to shave a little off?
Yeah. And you know, it's just getting rid of the fuzzies.
Okay.
They're what sort of interfere, but it's a tight fit, and you know it's wood. So
yeah. So it's prone to a little expansion.
yeah.
All right. I just didn't know if I was pressing hard enough. Yeah, there we go.
Have you tried this one into that one yet?
I have not.
Okay.
But I'm going to take them apart to do that, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, so this is interesting, trying to get them apart.
Yeah, that's where I actually had a little crackage with the first one, was when I was taking it apart.
All right, so they all fit. So
All right, so we can glue 3 of them
glue 3 of them
from the back side.
from the back side.
Right.
Which is there.
Yeah, so bevel side up.
We can just leave these together, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, just line them up while you're gluing them.
Yeah. Okay.
This is one that we've pre-bent. That's why you're feeling it's awkward to flip it over.
Okay.
But we want to flip it over because we want to glue from the underside.
From the back.
Yeah.
Okay, so we gotta get that flat, even though it's got a curve in it, but it should be all right.
Yeah.
Now, you went along the whole puzzle joint.
Yeah.
You didn't dab it here.
Right. And, I'm not putting a huge bead there, just getting it wet all the way along the whole seam. And that'll generally good, just like that.
There we go. This is delicate work.
It is a bit delicate, yeah.
All right, so here, I guess, this one.
Yeah, yeah, and I like to get tape the whole way around, so not just at the puzzle joints, but all the way around.
Right.
So it'd be straight pieces, as many as necessary to get all the way around. This one, instead of having it overhang there, you could, do that
shorter.
and do that. Well, it can come all the way out here. Just don't want it hanging over the inside. It can hang over the outside, but not over.
Okay, I kind of cut too much, but that's all right.
And it's probably better not to have the tape overlap that puzzle joint
At all.
at all. Yeah,
Okay.
I've used it in the past, but let's go with it not overhanging.
Something like that?
Yeah, and just make sure it's well stuck down.
Sometimes you wish it were an octopus. What do you think?
That should do the trick. So now I just grab that paint bucket, and this one is easier. It's it's not as tight a radius.
Okay, so
But again, just sort of ease it together, get a feel for it, and find out where you're going to need your hands when you get there. You're going to need your hands to fit that puzzle piece together.
Right, you're going to be in here. I'm just kind of flexing it right
Yeah.
now.
And see, we've already test fitted this, so we know it fits, this is something I've learned from experience.
Not to do it after the fact. Learn it after the fact. Yeah. That's the bad thing. Yeah, because if you were wondering, does it fit, doesn't fit,
Yeah.
or doesn't it? But we know it does. All right, so. Go.
Beautiful. Did better than me. You didn't glue your finger to the piece.
Yeah. Well, no, I guess I didn't.
All right, so it's still delicate. It's a little bit Pringle shaped. We're going to want this to be dead flat when it's done. So this piece here is going to fit down into here nice and snug. But there's some tolerances here to get this to wrap around. I find I generally need to do a little bit of sanding of this inside surface. Let's start with the round piece. So again, this round one, we had a little bit of a kink at this last joint going together. So it's actually cracked there, but we've got some tape across it, and that should hold together long enough for us to get the boat put together. This piece wants to end up right down in there, and it's tight around here, but basically it wants to be perfectly round. So what I found we need to do is shave down this inner perimeter a little bit. We've got sanding stick here. We're going to essentially put a bevel all the way around that inner edge. And it might take a fair amount of work to get that. I can push this down in there. One thing that tends to happen with this piece, since this is so Pringle shaped, that flat ring down there. That needs to be flat when it's done. This thing doesn't have enough substance to it to counteract the pringleness of this coming down. So I've make some, just using some scrap plywood, or in this case OSB, make something to stiffen that ring up. And so this and some clamps. This OSB ring is a little bit smaller in diameter than this ring. That way it's not interfering with any of the fit. And this can be clamped together. So we'll use that a little bit later on in the process, but that's what that is for. Essentially, we're trying to make this inner circumference here, the length of that circumference, the same as the circumference of this piece. So they will fit tightly together. And I'd like a little bit more slack in there just to make it so it fits in there smoothly. So it's probably easiest to work on this corner here. So you see I'm holding the file, or the nail file, sort of vertically in this hole so it'll match the edge of the piece we're trying to fit. So I'm knocking the corner off here of this piece with the file, and then when this piece comes down, it's fitting inside of that bevel we're creating. Just want to see if I can get it down all the way around at the same time. Then we'll worry about finessing the fit. And so we're not taking one spot off here. We're trying to keep this a smooth, fair curve all the way around. So it's not like there's one spot that's going to keep this from fitting, because it's a circle. When this is done, this wants to be a circle also. Yeah, we still need to go a little bit more.
But every time you do it, you make a complete circle.
Right, again, this isn't the problem where one place is going to be wrong. It's the whole perimeter wants to be the same. And we've got this little knuckle area. I want to be careful to get into there too. This is one of those situations where you feel like you want to just do a little bit at a time, but sometimes you need to lean into it and do some more. Yeah, that'll do it. So there, I'm able to get it down all the way around the whole perimeter. Not perfectly lined up, but I see I am capable of making it get all the way around. Now we can take this reinforcement ring, get it clamped on here. So I was pushing down against the workbench here, and that was keeping this ring flat, but now I'll use this. The grain on this piece, right now it's running this way. That's the direction the grain's running. I don't think it really matters, but I like to sort of have that grain go across on this piece. So we're going to, again, see if we can get this pressed down on there. And actually, probably the easiest way to do this is to just start to work our way around. We know it will fit on. If we align that bottom edge, this bottom edge here, it should be good. So we'll put a couple spots of glue right there. Let that set up a little bit more and just start working our way around here. So aligning as we go. This will glue that tape down a little bit, but we'll peel it off.
Feel like trying to get a bicycle tube on a rim.
Yeah. No, I don't want to get this.
So you were just making sure that once you got started a little bit, that the whole thing would still go on.
Yeah.
So that you didn't get a bad spot after you had it glued up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
clamping it in place with the packing tape.
Yeah, if you hadn't taped up those pieces, I don't think they would have lasted through all this.
Right, yeah, the taping provides amazing amount of strength. It will go, but it's under a bit of stress while it's getting lined up. Pulling that tape really tight. And it likes to stick to itself better than it sticks to the wood. Get these places where it's good. Make sure it's solid. So again, I'm trying to make the bottom edge of the recess even with the edge of the ring. Trying to get some of this stuff out of the way. Get this last bit lined up. So that looks good there. So a lot of it is getting the angle of pressure on it. All right, so that's basically in place. Now we're gonna take off the tape. I could have made that look easier, but it is what it is. It's a little bit of a struggle. So I'm going to just, to make sure this doesn't go sproing, I'm going to put a nice bead of super glue all the way around that perimeter. All right, so that's that piece. So with this reinforcement ring, it keeps the bottom of that flat. And where we had the crack down in here, you still see a little bit of a crack up in here where we've got a little bit of a knuckle, but down in there, since it's wrapped around that round ring, that's smoothed out and looks perfect. So, want to try the other one?
Okay.
Yeah, that nubbin doesn't actually need to stay on because there is no matching nubbin on this piece.
Oh, okay, so
but you do want to be aware of this is the point. And so that you want to have that.
you want that reference.
Yeah, so what I would suggest is,
Mark it.
yeah, so this is where that nubbin is.
All right.
And there happens to be
Two holes here.
two stitch holes right there also.
Where there's only one in the back.
Right, and so I have this set up so you could wire everything together, what we're doing here, but I don't end up using those wires. But those stitch holes will help you sort of identify where things need to be.
Okay.
So I've made a mark directly between those two stitch holes, and we've got two stitch holes on this piece, and so that nubbin can now be sanded off.
All right.
Or planed off, or whatever works. That bigger working surface here. Just lay that down here for a second. So, all right, so we could actually use something a little bit bigger, but that should work. Yeah, it almost certainly will need to work on this inside edge, but just to see how far off we are.
Not too far off.
Yeah, it's not too far off. Let's go ahead and sand that edge
Oh, you do want to sand it.
anyways. Just
All right.
it'll give a little flat spot for it to rest on, which will make it easier.
So right along here, we just want it plain straight down.
Right, yeah, just sort of hold the file at a 45 to the surface, more or less.
Like that.
Yeah, and go all the way around. And so you get a little bit of a chamfer all the way around. You seeing a chamfer there? So,
Not too much yet.
all right,
Little
make it so you can see it.
A little bit.
And then try and make it consistent all the way around. And we don't want to break the puzzle joint, so
Be careful.
yeah, sometimes support right at the puzzle joint while you're doing it. Yeah, the round one is easier in this manner because it's round, where this is oval, and so the pointy end needs to be at the pointy end.
Yeah, that's going to work.
Yeah, I think it will.
Okay. So I think we've determined it will work.
So why don't we do what I ended up doing with the tape? So we'll sort of tape it into place.
Okay.
So I'd start, again, we want
That lined up.
that lined up, so let's just make it visible.
Okay.
And
right here visible,
Okay,
and right here and here.
just a good reference.
Yeah, just so we can see that. So I'd start taping it at that point.
Okay, where's my chamfer?
It's on this.
On this. All right, this doesn't have an upside down.
Nope. There is probably a better face of that plywood than one face of the other, but it's all going to get covered. So this is the hatch. The oval here is the ring upon which this will go. So the only bit of this we'll see is the outside of the black plastic bit.
Gotcha.
So it's not very visible. So I'd start at that reference point.
Right at the reference point, put them together, and then,
Just take a piece. And so I would take and wrap it all the way around. So line up that point and now take this and pull it tight
pull it nice and tight.
and wrap it around so that piece is well stuck there.
Yeah.
And now you can sort of ease your way around, every 6 inches or so.
And just being careful with those joints. Would you go over the joints, or would you?
It wouldn't hurt to go over the joints, but I don't really pay too much attention to the joints. I just, I want to get the thing somewhat situated.
Yep.
This is your extra pair of hands, is this tape.
Right. So something I just realized was I'm trying to get this perfect, and this doesn't have to be. I'm gonna.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be perfect now.
All I have to do is.
This is just your spare set of hands, so when you try to get it perfect, you're not trying to be an octopus.
Right. Well, I guess I can work that around once I get it glued. Now I've got to make sure it goes, huh?
Yeah, you want to make sure it goes.
There it goes.
All right, that was a satisfying snap. That
Yep,
probably,
that did it.
So probably glue that before it goes anywhere.
All right. It's still a little bit wonky. Yeah, because that's perfect.
So on the bottom side. We do have this brace thing, but you're not needing it. It's being pretty flat. We might put that on later, but
Okay.
where the round one really needs it, this one doesn't need it so much.
Am I putting those dots close enough together?
That's probably good for now.
Yeah.
Can come back when you've got it in place and do the full perimeter.
All right.
Okay,
Now just go around the perimeter, you say, right?
let's strip the tape off
Oh, okay. All right.
because some of the places you want to get, the tape is covering.
Yep.
So I just cut that. And let's clamp this piece on too.
Oh, before we do the tape?
No, after doing the tape, but before doing the full perimeter. Yep. Nice.
Oh, nice, elegant shape.
Yeah, beautiful. So let's clamp this in there, and that'll just flatten that out. And then when you go to do the rest of the perimeter, this will be,
A little easy.
the whole thing will be nice and flat. That should do it.
Should do it? Okay. Get that back over. Grab this and just go around the whole thing.
Yep, and we're not trying to make a mess, we're just trying to get some in that groove.
Okay.
Beautiful.
There.
Excellent. All right, that should do. So what did you think of the assembly of the hatches?
I think the one you did looked much more difficult than the one I had to do. Mine went together fairly easily.
Yeah, no, that did go together easily. Yeah, this is deeper. It's a tighter radius, and I think the sides here are steeper, so there's a lot more stress on the whole thing. But these assemblies are sort of fitting in a similar manner to the way the cockpit recess is going. This one will go up here, and this one will go back here, and we've got the little tab with the little notch, and so that will go here. And they will take some fitting yet, but that's essentially where they're going to go. And so what I'd like to do now is start getting we've loosely sort of assembled this, but we haven't really gotten to the point of getting it dialed in.
So I'm going to end it right here for this episode. We still have a little bit more stitching up of the deck to do, and that's all happening in the same day. But just to keep the length of these videos reasonable, I'm going to break it off right now. So as you saw, the bending of those hatch recesses can be a bit of a process. We're asking a lot out of the plywood to make some fairly complicated shapes. The benefit of doing that, again, is it keeps the front deck clear, so water flowing on the front deck doesn't splash up quite as much. If you're doing a self-rescue climbing on the back deck, you don't have a hatch sticking up in your way, and it just kind of looks better. With the combing itself, where you sit, the recess lowers the back deck a little bit so you can lay back for a roll, and it also, the sort of sill around the combing creates a nice flat place to rest your knees and have good purchase on the boat, and so you can connect yourself with the boat comfortably. It ends up being a very comfortable cockpit, and that sort of space around the combing that's a little bit flattened out, that's part of the key to the comfort. Again, a bit of a process doing these recesses. I showed a couple different ways to go about it. You can just bend the parts cold. The 3mm plywood should be able to do it, but again, we're asking a lot of it. So the heat gun idea helps quite a bit, makes it more flexible. It's softening up the glue between the plies of the plywood, and also softening up the lignin that sort of holds the cellulose in the wood together. The heat gun works quite well for that. People have been known to just throw a panel in the microwave. I don't know that I recommend it. That could be dangerous, but it's a way to heat up the wood. You could use a hot iron, press it down against the panel. If somebody's a luthier, the luthiers have this heated caul to bend stuff around. Something like that could work. So I recommend playing around with heat to make those bends a little bit easier. And then just getting the fit of the ring to the recess area. You want to knock off the corner, the bottom corner of the recess, just to make it so the circumference of that recess and the circumference of the ring match a little bit. If you have the recess a little bit oversized, so it slides in easily, that might make it better. But again, that's removing the corner all the way around that ring, or all the way around that recess. Don't just try and peck away at a spot where you think it's jamming up. You want to make it consistent all the way around. So, in the next episode, we will finish stitching up the deck. I'm not sure if we'll get to doing the fillets in the next episode. I've got all of this stuff already filmed, the video's already captured. It just depends on how the editing comes out, how much Bill and I are talking. and what questions arise as we're building the boat. So if you're interested in seeing more of these videos, please hit subscribe, turn on notifications so YouTube lets you know when they're done. If you're enjoying this, please hit like. It helps the visibility of my videos. If you're interested in directly supporting the production of these videos, I have a Patreon site where the money that comes in there goes directly to equipment and so forth to produce these videos. So any way you can support, I really appreciate. Share this video to others that you think might be interested in it. And until the next time, happy paddling.